Vince McMahon, a man born in 1945 that changed the sports entertainment scene globally. McMahon, the son of a wrestling promoter, would work alongside his father for the Capitol Wrestling Corporation that would later turn into what we all knew as WWF in 1979, which is currently known as the WWE today. In 1982, McMahon would purchase the WWF from his father, and from that point on, Vince had a blueprint to turn this barely known company into a global household name.
This is Vince McMahon reporting, and indeed, later on this week we'll take you back to the matchup involving
being there from the 70s to 2024, which he left the company behind in 2024. Now, why would this guy leave his heart and soul behind just like that? Is it a coincidence a lawsuit came out and then this guy leaves the company? I mean, we'll look into it. And this video is really just like a deep dive into the mind of Vince McMahon, the freakish mind of this guy, because I've really been looking into him, and yeah, this guy's a little weird. If we get to the early 90s, we had some prominent names like Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Warrior, faces of the company who were obviously on the juice. Now, am I trying to say Vince McMahon made his guys take the juice? No, but there has been wrestlers that have said that you have to look the part if you want to make main events. Many people would come at Vince McMahon over steroid use in the WWF at that time, where multiple people would write articles coming at McMahon, which this caused Vince McMahon to go the NFL, NBA corporate route to where you start drug testing the people in your company, where he says that he's going to start drug testing people in the WWF to make sure no one is taking any drugs.
That the WWF has one of the most comprehensive drug testing, education, and rehabilitation programs in all of sports.
Clearly lying through that billionaire mouth of his, which, by the way, he wasn't a billionaire yet at that time. Now let me just show you a few wrestlers. I'm going to show them here on the screen. Now you tell me, are these guys, are they being rehabilitated and drug tested? Probably not, but they're really jacked on the TV screen and in real life, and the normal person couldn't look like them ever. Now if we get to the surge of WCW in 1996, it's no question WCW was killing WWF in the ratings, and like every great entrepreneur, Vince had to adapt and change to the competition.
Ted Turner. Ted Turner, of course, has the rival wrestling organization, and you don't like the man.
All I'll say about Ted, he's a son of a bitch.
And this is where we really get a glimpse of the personality of Vince McMahon, because in 1996, this would spark something in Vince McMahon that made him want to go harder for the company. He couldn't handle seeing the competition do better, so Vince fires a lot of his staff and writers and hires new writers and staff and wants WWF to turn into a dramatic and entertaining show that people can't resist to watch when they turn on their TV. And this is where we get the shift from wrestling to entertainment. Vince McMahon would take inspiration from shows like The Jerry Springer Show and implement it into his own program, and by 1997, this is where we would get the start of the Attitude Era.
Even though we call ourselves sports entertainment because of the athleticism involved, the key word in that phrase is entertainment.
And if you want to talk about entertainment, oh yeah, you would be entertained back then watching the WWF. Here during the Attitude Era, we would get more prominent female wrestlers like Chyna, but not only prominent female wrestlers we would also get females that didn't do much wrestling. Women with those titties out. This is how we get people to watch our program.
I am no pervert.
But there's a reason this guy got this company to the $1 billion mark. Now, the over-sexualization of girls is not okay. No. This guy was just using his head. There's a bunch of guys watching this sport. There's barely any girls watching. And what do guys like? Well, obviously the guys aren't watching. They'll watch the girls wrestle. No. But I'm sure you guys could have guessed people would start to complain about the edginess to the WWF. So what does Vince McMahon do? Well, he puts his foot on the gas even more, and we start to get into some pretty interesting storylines from this guy. Listen, any 50 to 60 year old, which was his age at this time, that's pumping up their body like a Thanksgiving turkey on the table, bro, and stuffing it up with steroids, listen, they got a problem. They're 50 years old. You don't need to be taking that. But I'm sure the steroids was getting to this old man's head, because the storylines you're about to hear from this guy that he wanted to do back then are just crazy.
My dad did approach me about wanting to be the father of my baby in a storyline.
Stephanie McMahon would be approached by her father, Vince McMahon, and be asked if he could be the father of her baby in a storyline. Now, I don't know what kind of Sweet Home Alabama shit this is, but what the hell goes on in this man's head to where this is one of the ideas he comes up with his own blood daughter. And Stephanie actually said this is one of the storylines she had to say no to, obviously, but this is like one of the very few she has ever said no to, and I can see why she did. And she probably thought her father was a sick idiot after this too. Or we could talk about the time he made Trish Stratus bark like a dog in front of everyone on live TV and make her strip naked, half naked.
Bark like a dog!
Or we could talk about the time he wanted the wrestler to go into a funeral home and go buy a casket and start fornicating with, well, what's inside of a casket, guys? Well, that would be a body that's not alive.
Making love to a dead person, you know, a female dead person when you're a guy, that is like high comedy if there ever is.
Yeah, Vince McMahon, making love to a dead person, just real high comedy right there. I almost forgot to laugh when watching that shit back. Something tells me this Vince McMahon guy wasn't playing a character back then, and this was his real thoughts. And I still can't get over the fact you wanted to get your daughter pregnant for a storyline, like it's anything for money for these people. There's no moral boundary or anything. But by 1999, McMahon would take the WWF public and raise $170 million in its initial offering, and by this time the WWF was worth around $1 billion, getting millions of viewers to tune into the program every week. Let me introduce you guys to the Ruthless aggression era, and do we turn it down a notch here? No, we turn it up more.
Ruthless aggression.
Well, we can start with storylines like Kurt Angle trying to mess with Booker T's actual wife, Charmel, where the storyline between Kurt Angle and Booker T was Kurt Angle was the heel, Booker T was the babyface, and Kurt Angle was harassing Booker T's wife this whole time they were feuding.
Kind of perverted sex, bestiality sex with your wife.
And there's this one segment where he locks himself in a room with Charmel and she starts screaming, "Now this makes great TV!" Or when Eddie Guerrero tragically passed away in 2005, Vince and the writers would make Randy Orton go make fun of Eddie's death in a way. Now obviously everything falls through Vince before they go on TV and say stuff, but Randy Orton would say Eddie's not in heaven, no, he's down there in hell.
Eddie's down there in hell!
Now you can really see how low Vince will stoop to just to get a reaction out of his audience. I get it's acting and it's supposed to be entertainment, but I feel like this was a big slap in the face to the Guerrero family, and Randy Orton has stated that he never wanted to say that because he respected Eddie in a big way. Thing I also forgot to mention, during the Ruthless aggression era in 2002, WWF would turn to WWE because they were getting a lawsuit with the Worldwide Fund for Nature, who had the name first, so Vince McMahon just let them keep the name and they changed it to World Wrestling Entertainment. Now, if we get to July of 2008, this is when WWE would change from the TV-14 programming to the PG era on Raw. And by 2009, it was in full effect. The PG era was set in stone for all programming, SmackDown, ECW, and Raw. Now, people say they changed and turned down the edginess on WWE because it would just be better for ads and the company would make more money in the long term. It would also be more appealing to the little kids. But some also speculate that because of what Chris Benoit did in 2007, Vince and his wife Linda wanted to make changes to the company after getting a lot of backlash about Benoit and his CTE. So WWE wouldn't allow any more chair shots to the face, and I'm sure you guys could tell that because you never see crazy chair shots anymore to the head or anything like that. Also, they would slow down on blood and blading and all. Who knew the freak Vince McMahon was capable of making changes like this? I'm really proud of you, but what was happening backstage during all this time? Let's flash forward to 2022. So in 2022, I know that's a big jump, but we really didn't hear anything bad about Mr. McMahon from the time WWE went PG, because obviously they were PG and there's nothing really bad going on in WWE. It was cool, it was entertaining, and it was for the kids. But if we get to 2022, WWE would look into allegations of sexual misconduct from the man himself, Vincent Kennedy McMahon. It focused on a hush settlement involving a woman that he allegedly had an affair with while working at WWE. They also discovered more hush agreements with other female staff at WWE that accused McMahon of more misconduct. It was later figured out that he would pay these women $20 million in total. But when you got billions, it's like me buying a McChicken from McDonald's. Bro's almost 80 years old trying to get his freak on at work. Can that thing even get up anymore? In June 2022, McMahon stepped down as WWE's chairman and chief executive. However, he returned as executive chairman back in January of 2023. Where in 2023, he would actually sell the WWE for billions of dollars.
So why?
It's the right time. It's the right time to do the right thing.
But still have creative control because, you know, that's Vince McMahon right there, the godfather of the WWE. Now, I don't think anyone in their right mind would have thought of Vince McMahon selling his heart and soul like this, his baby. You know what I'm saying? This is something he created from the ground up, so why would he just sell it? Did he see something coming? Did he just want to get those $1 billion and dip off the map? Well, if someone got accused of sexual trafficking, I'm sure they would want to do that. Come January 2024, McMahon would find himself in another lawsuit where a former employee that goes by the name Janelle accused McMahon of sexual trafficking and making her perform lewd acts on him for money. And since this lawsuit on Vince McMahon, he has stepped down with everything involving WWE. He has nothing to do with it anymore. The girl Janelle that's accusing Vince McMahon of doing this to her, she said that her and McMahon agreed on a hush agreement that she would get $3 million to be quiet, but she says she never got this $3 million in full, and this is why she wants to pull through with this lawsuit and void the agreement that they had. Now, this is an open case being looked into by the feds. Now, remember, these are all just allegations, but it is proven that this guy has paid girls millions of dollars to keep quiet. Well, maybe I shouldn't say to keep quiet. Who knows if it was to keep quiet? Maybe it was just because he felt like sending random girls millions of dollars just because he's him. Now, it's really hard to beat the feds. I don't want to accuse Vince McMahon of anything. All I want to say is that I think this guy just thinks that money can get him whatever he wants in this world, and greed has got him into a deep, deep hole. But it's no question, from watching the Ruthless Aggression and Attitude Era, this guy has a really freaky mindset.